Guys, let's talk about batteries. If you've been following my videos, you know that I have 2 packs that I'm gonna be selling. These are used, but I'm gonna run through the numbers and I'm gonna let you know how much life is left in them and how much they're worth. Every once in a while in the comments, someone will ask an interesting questions that I just happen to have the answer to. So today we're gonna answer that question. All right, so today's question comes from Peter Luckham, 18 hours ago. He said, hey Jehu, I'm concerned about these cells having hit rock bottom. He's talking about the cells on another project that was in a video. Look at this car here. You see this car here? This came back with a battery that was way too low. I think it was like 28 volts or something before we checked it. Here's the pack. What's the collateral damage, he says. If the pack was between 28 and 50 volts, that means that the cells had to be between 0.8 volts and 1.5 volts. That's if you had 32 cells. All the science folks tell us that once below 2.5 volts, damage is being done to the cell cathode plating, blah, blah, blah. I would really love to tell you how the car's doing, but the car's been sitting there doing nothing. I don't know what the deal is with that car. I don't know when they're gonna pick it up. It was an easy, quick fix. We just charged the batteries up. The car is fine, as far as I know. But the real questions here is there a possibility that some cells are now damaged or have reduced capacity, changing the entire balance equation? You always provide lots of great tips and info. Well, what do you know? Today is your lucky day, Peter, because I actually happen to have some data that will help me answer that question. So if you've been following my videos, you would know that I'm getting ready to sell 70 of these 90 amp hour Winston lithium iron phosphate bricks that I've had on my Samba. And I have actually done that thing where I ran my stated charge down to 0%. What does that mean? I've actually run down my battery voltage down to below a volt until the car wouldn't roll anymore. I estimate that I have done that about 10 times in the past 3.5 years, right? And so if there is some damage to these cells, I should be able to detect it now 3.5 years later, right? By seeing how much cell degradation I have now and how much of that I can account for normal tear and wear, normal use, and if there's any difference between the normal tear and wear where my batteries should be and where they are now, then maybe that difference right there could be attributed to the 10 times or so that I've done that to the cells. So let's see if there's actually this data helps us. I wish I was a lot more disciplined and organized to be able to keep all this data stuff, but I'm not. And so that doesn't mean that we can't come up with some rough estimate because all the info is here. I do keep tracks of a lot of stuff, right? So let's start from the beginning. These are lithium iron phosphate cells, and the manufacturers say that these cells are good 2,000 cycles to 70% of their original capacity, right? So what does that mean? That means that in 2,000 cycles, it's normal to lose 30% of the cell's capacity. But so how much is that? I mean, just how much energy is that? You just divide 2,000 into 30 amp hours, right? And then you come up with 0.015, which is 15 milliamp hours, or 0.015%, because here I'm using as an example a 100 amp hour cell, right? Just to keep things simple. So that means that it's 15 milliamp hours on a 100 amp hour cell, or about 26 milliamp hours on a 180 amp hour cell. That's about what I had here. I had 2 of these 90 amp hour cells parallel, which should equal 180 amp hours. And every cycle that you run, the normal degradation, the normal damage, we don't call it damage, but that's what it is. The batteries get slightly damaged, should equal about 26 milliamp hours. Okay, so after 3 years, my smallest cell is 170 amp hours. I tested this by running my car just at the lithium iron phosphate cells, and I ran it and I kept track of the amp hours and the voltage. And once the voltage came down to a certain level, to around 100 volts, then I pulled over and then I looked and I took this picture here. And as you can see, I'm about 3 amp hours away from 170. But I was in the freeway. If I was on the street, I know I can get the 3 amp hours left out. So let's just call these cells 170 amp hours, right? And so that means that they're down 10 amp hours from 3.5 years ago. And so that represents a 5.5% degradation, or about 1.5% per year. Now that's pretty good. At this rate, these batteries have about 24.5% of life left in them. And if you divide that to 1.5% that I've been using up each year, that means that these batteries still have about 16.3% of life in them at the rate at which I am using them in the Samba. I've been running them down to 0 3 to 4 times a year. So let's just see if we can figure out if there's some extra degradation in there. I'm at 5.5% right now. Let's see where we should be under normal use. So 1.5% divided by 0.015%, which is the normal degradation, equals 100. So 1.5% of degradation equals the normal wear and tear and cell degradation of 100 cycles. So 100 cycles times 3.5 years equals 350 cycles. That's where I am right now. There's 182 weeks in 3.5 years. And so that equals, or that represents about 1.9 cycles per week. Almost 2 cycles per week. Now, do I really charge 2 cycles per week? Even though I don't keep track, I have enough information here to kind of figure out how many cycles I should have, right? So look, for the first year, I installed these cells on the Samba on July of 2013, right? And it was a small battery pack. It was about 22 kilowatt hours. And so it would only give me about 50 to 60 miles of range. And so, yeah, I remember the first year I used to charge quite a bit, probably about 2 times a week. So that's fine. Yeah, 2 times a week, that's on par that's right on par with where we should be. But here's what happened. In July, a year after I installed those, in July 2014, I installed the Tesla packs, the smart Tesla packs, which would not like more than double my range, right? So now I have 150 miles of range. So from July 2014 to, I want to say, about 6 months ago, when I started going down to San Diego on a weekly basis, I'd say that I didn't charge twice a week. I said that maybe I charge about once a week. There was a week here and there that I did charge more, but there was a few weeks that I didn't charge at all. I would charge once every 2 weeks, right? So I think it's safe to say that the average throughout all that time was about 1 charge per week, and I should have about 110 cycles for that time, right? But for the first year and for the last month, or 72 weeks, I should have 2 cycles per week, which should account for about 144 cycles. So if we add the 144 cycles that are accounted for, that are normal, 2 cycles per week, plus the 1 cycle a week for 110 weeks, then that brings us to 254 cycles that should be accounted. That's where I should be at. From this time to that time, I used to charge about twice a week. From this time to around this time, about once a week. It comes out that I should be around 254 cycles, right? So that means there's a difference of 96 cycles, because I am currently, my cell degradation is currently about 350 cycles in, and I should only be around 254. 96 cycles, let's just round up to 100 cycles. So that means I have 100 cycles difference. And since I can't really account for any other activity that might degrade the batteries more than normal, although some of you out there might debate that, but I don't care. If you have no logic behind your argument, I'm just going to dismiss it. So that means that the only activity that I've done that I can think of that can degrade the cells extra is that was about 10 times that I run the batteries down to zero, down past below 2.5 volts, right? And since I've done that about 10 times, that means that those 100 cycles could probably be attributed to that activity. And so that means that each single time that I did that, it came at a cost of about 10 cycles worth of degradation. So that's quite a bit, you know, that's 10 times, you know. Yeah, I would say that's damage. I would call that damage if the increase of the degradation is tenfold. Yeah, that's damage. It's damage, but is it really that serious? Those 10 incidents where I ran my battery down cost me 2.6 amp hours, which is the equivalent of 118,650. So it's not that much when you look at it this way, right? Although when you look at it another way, 100 cycles at 2 cycles per week, that's like 50 weeks. That's like an entire year. So that means those 10 instances where I ran the batteries down has cost me an entire year of degradation out of my cells. Well, that looks more sizable, right? You know, so what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that at the rate that I'm going at 1.5%, including all those times that I'm running the batteries and I'm damaging them, right? Every time that I'm running them down to zero, I still have 16.5 years of life on these cells. So if you don't run them down to 0%, you will gain another 3-4 years worth of life. And so you're looking more like 20 years of life left in them, right? But that's if you're gonna use these cells the way that I'm using them on the Samba. And you know, on the Samba, I'm charging at 5 kilowatt rate in, and I'm discharging at about 22 kilowatts rate out, right? So it's kind of a harsh life. I have a big battery, so it's okay. If you're gonna use this on some like solar storage, then perhaps you're gonna be discharging them at less. If you're discharging them at like 2 kilowatts, right? Because if you have a 2 kilowatt inverter, then these lights are really gonna have really easy life, and they're definitely gonna last you about 20 years. So there you go. This is information. I don't have all the information. It's not super detailed and stuff, but I believe that we have enough information here to come up with some rough numbers, right? Remember, you gotta bottom balance your batteries in order to be able to not kill them. Because if you balance them at the top, when you hit the bottom, there's gonna be all over the place, and the ones that hit the bottom the first, you're gonna kill them. But if you bottom balance them, you place them all at the same voltage at 2.7 volts. When they hit that number, they all quit at the same time, so none of them have the extra power to run electrons through the other ones. And so because they all quit at the same time, you don't kill them. So yes, you do damage them slightly. You know, if you do it 10 times, that'll cost you about a year worth of degradation. So hopefully that answered your question. Hopefully I've done a good job and explained this in a way that you guys can understand it. If I've done a good job and you believe so, make sure you check out my Patreon here. It really helps me to make these videos. I'm really struggling right now to spend more time doing videos. It's essentially what I want to do full time, but currently I'm having to spend a lot of other time doing other activities that generate income. And so I'm not really spending the time that I wish I could making these videos. And so the only way to get better at doing videos is just by doing it and doing it and doing it, right? And so at this rate, I think it's gonna take me longer and longer. So if you like what I do, if you want to see more, if you feel compelled to help me out, you can donate as little as $1 a month, $1 a video. You can set caps so that you totally customize how much you want to help me, and every little bit helps. All right. Okay, guys. See you on the next video. Bye. Just randomly checking one of these cells on the second pack that I'm gonna sell. By the way, I forgot to say, if you're interested in obtaining either one of these packs that I'm currently testing, make sure and you submit your email here. I'll send out an email once I'm ready to actually accept offers or money for these cells, and I can send an email blast to you guys that are interested so that you guys can be the first ones to know. We can arrange to find a new home for these cells. All right? Okay, bye. I'm back at EV West. We're gonna check out some batteries.